Great. All right, brothers. Welcome back to the FRAC Tavern. Tonight's a special night. We have Grand Presidential candidate Cory Stopka of Minnesota here with us tonight. He's going to be giving us a good spiel. Cory, behalf of FRAC, the unofficial Fairbanks alumni chapter, aka Delta Sigma Pi's free range alumni community. We welcome you, and I'll pass it off to you to just tell us who you are, what you want us to hear, and we'll get to the Q&A afterward. If anyone has any questions, just private message me in the chat, and we'll make sure Cory answers them after he gives his presentation.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Vito. Thanks, FRAC. Thanks, everybody. I am excited to be here with all of you tonight. So I do have, I'll be able to share my screen here in a moment and go over some background that I have personally, professionally, and fraternally, and then my vision for us as Delta Sigs, if I was to be lucky enough to be elected as your Grand President and serve in that way. So I hope that if there are questions or comments throughout the presentation or at the end, I welcome any thoughts and discussion and ideas that all of you have, whether that's tonight or beyond. I want to make sure that I'm open and available for you beyond today. So I think I have been on calls with all of you throughout the time. So Facebook Messenger, call, text, email, tweets, Instagram posts, whatever works for you, works for me to connect. So know that I'm a resource for you beyond this evening. So there's been three things that I've been trying to focus on throughout the campaign and what I would like to focus on as we move through the next biennium and beyond as an organization. And that is inform, inspire, and implement. Inform means that sharing the why in what we are doing, the conversations that we're having, and being able to be transparent and sharing the discussions that we're having that have an impact on all of you as individuals. The inspire is trying to find ways to gain your buy-in and show how it is going to impact all of you for the better. The implement is to move beyond the idea phase and develop those metrics and what we are going to accomplish together. So those are the three things that I would like to focus on throughout the campaign and beyond. So like I had said a little bit earlier, I'll share some personal, professional, fraternal background, highlight a couple grand presidential duties from our bylaws, share my platform with all of you, and then questions and thoughts, and then find ways to connect beyond this evening. So thanks for having me. I enjoy taking the evenings to spend time with Delta Sigs and share my thoughts and vision with all of you and have these types of conversations. My intent here tonight is to be open in what I would like to accomplish and be an open reference for all of you. And then expectations would be, active listening on both our parts. I think that's a strength of mine, is to be able to listen to all of you. And then if you have questions, please do share those because I would love to dive deeper into any of these things as we move along. So a little bit of a personal background. I am a father to Finn. He's in the other room right here. He's turning 5 months next week. My wife, Anna, is over there with him, and we're going to be celebrating our 5th wedding anniversary later on this year. And then we also have 2 rescue dogs, Penny Lane and Ramen Noodle, that we, once it's no longer 90 degrees in Minnesota, will enjoy taking them for walks. I'm a huge baseball fan. Love watching baseball. I also love playing golf. And then I'm a huge national park enthusiast. So trying to visit all those parks and be able to share that with the family now is something that I truly enjoy. A little bit of a professional background on myself. Currently, I am the operations business manager at Cameron's Coffee. We create our own coffee, package that, and sell it to places all across the 48 contiguous states. We also co-pack and do private label brands for some of the largest players in the industry. And we're an $85 million company right now, and we were purchased by Grupo Nutrisa in September of 2019. And that is based out of Columbia. And my role as operations business manager is a brand new role within the company that was created to find a way to create that communication chain between the two companies and then within Cameron's in Minnesota to better implement all of the growth that we are looking to achieve. We're looking to double that $85 million in revenue over the next 5 years to contribute to that $3 billion revenue stream that Grupo Nutrisa has across the entire globe. So my role currently is threefold. Number one, I support our new items in marketing and sales development with an operations mindset to make sure that we're producing what we need to produce on time to deliver to our customers what we need. The second thing that I do is being that main communicator and liaison between the two companies and developing the process across the globe on how we're best able to implement all the projects that we have. And then the third thing is, as we continue to grow, I'm in charge of the capital projects that we have to sustain the business path that we want. So I have coffee background. Most recently, I was the senior manager of operations at a microbrewery in Minnesota. And we were the first woman-only owned brewery in the state of Minnesota. And I started there as their lead sales rep. And went from 0 accounts to 300 accounts over the course of my tenure there, selling our beer into places like Target, Hy-Vee, and Total Wine, along with a lot of other small retailers. And prior to that, I ran a distributor for Coors. And so anything that was Blue Moon, Coors Light, Keystone Light, and then some other small breweries across the state, anything that went out that way, that was under my responsibility from a sales, distribution, inventory, warehouse management, anything that had to do with the organization, that was my main responsibility. And then I was also the main liaison and face in the community for our company, and then worked directly with our Miller Coors reps to implement everything that we needed to. And prior to that, I was the account manager for Coca-Cola. So I've moved from pop or soda, depending on where you are in the country, to beer, both macro and micro, and now into the coffee business in all different types of roles and responsibilities, strategic planning, budgeting, finance, anything and everything. I've been blessed to be able to have a lot of opportunities to lead multiple different business units in my career. Fraternally, currently I'm the North Central Provincial Vice President. So I serve on your board of directors and represent all of you. And then I also have that operations mindset from the North Central to lead our provincial team to help our chapters in the province. Previously, I've been an educational leadership consultant for central office. So I've worked on staff and now in a volunteer role. Throughout my time on staff and now as a volunteer, I have visited over or nearly 100 campuses, and that's in person. That's not virtual. So all of the ideas and thoughts that I have is about the interactions and conversations and the relationships that I've developed over the last 15 years as a fraternal leader in formal and informal roles. I'm also a donor to the Leadership Foundation and very well connected with that, which is important as a future grant president as well. So one of the things before I get into what my vision would be as grant president, I like to call out a few things from our bylaws, because as we look towards Grand Chapter Congress and making a decision on who our next grant president is going to be able to lead our organization through the amount of change that we've had over the last couple of years, both internally and externally, I think it's important for everybody to be as educated as possible on what position that they're voting on. So pull these directly out of the bylaws from Delta Sig. It's the chief elected officer of the fraternity. I would make sure that all grant officers and committees are successful by giving them the right resources and holding them accountable and giving them clear direction. I would act for the fraternity in all emergencies. I'd also, of course, bring in other leaders to make sure we were navigating any type of emergency properly. Issuing official communications on behalf of the organization. And like I had said, with my background in relationships within the Leadership Foundation, I would serve as a Leadership Foundation trustee to support that organization that would in turn support Delta Sigma Pi. And then I would be in charge of that executive director evaluation. And with my background working with executive leaders across the globe over the last 15 years, my time on staff as Delta Sig and understanding the inner workings, and now my recent time as a board of directors member, as we move forward to finding that next executive director, I'm uniquely qualified to be able to serve in that capacity. So there'd be 5 goals that I would have with being your grand president. I would focus on leadership development, diversity and inclusion, governance, growth and expansion, and to tie it all together, communication. What do each of those mean? So leadership development is something that I believe starts at the top, and I want to make sure that it's palpable at each level throughout the organization. So I want to be able to train and build the bench of our volunteer leaders. That's something that you've heard me say over the course of my leadership existence within Delta Sig, making sure that we're able to delegate the responsibilities to build each other up and provide transparency and give each other opportunities to enhance their learning. Because I believe that we all are going to be best at making decisions as we develop each other together. And we're going to have a brand new board of directors with a lot of turnover. And I think it's going to be extremely important that from day one, that we're all developing our skill sets to have a good foundation of understanding of each other, the process, and where we want to go. And it's going to be extremely important that we all come together to have cordial discussion and make the best decisions for the organization as a whole. And that's not something that I want to stop at the first couple board meetings. It's something that I want to continue to happen throughout the biennium. And I want it to be something where people have the empowerment to do this with their individual teams at every single level, so we're able to pass along that knowledge to each group. The second goal that I would have to focus on would be diversity and inclusion. And I believe that we all do better when we all do better, including as many perspectives in our decision-making process is going to make for a better world and a better fraternity. And we've made tremendous strides over the last couple of years with this. Not something that we need to, this is something that we need to continue to keep the momentum and create a permanent fixture within each thing that we do. And I've been extremely proud that we've been able to make the DEI task force something that we do as an organization, and looking forward to the growth and development that we're going to have because of those types of efforts. It's not going to be something that we change overnight, but we can make incremental positive change together. And this is not something that is a hot topic for me. This is something that I've lived by and had a focus on for many years in the past. So the main thing that I want to do with diversity and inclusion is to listen, understand other perspectives, making sure that we're able to collaborate across boundaries in a variety of different ways and make each other better and have a safe and comfortable environment for people to have honest and open conversations. And I would want to make sure that these efforts remain permanent and that we do not lose focus on what we need to be doing with DEI. Next thing I would want to focus on is governance. I believe that we're at a critical point in our existence as an organization. We haven't reviewed our governance structure holistically for 20 years now, and I think that the pandemic has created some opportunities for us to naturally take a look at these opportunities to find the right resources to put people in the right spot at the right time. I think over the course of the pandemic, we've found a way to become more empathetic with each other and understand where each other is coming from. So I want to make sure that we continue to expand the pool of volunteer leaders throughout this governance. The holistic review, that would include board of directors, it would include our committee structure and how we are structured overall as an organization. And at the end of the day, to make sure that we have the right resources at the right time for people to be able to do what they need to do that's important to them and continue that passion that we all have for Delta Sigma Pi. Fourth thing would be to focus on growth and expansion. Growing our network as Delta Sigs enhances the professional development that we all would like from collegiate and alumni chapters. So I'd want to make sure that we're looking at how we do things right now and complement and improve that, and also looking and addressing new avenues for growth. This is something that we were able to take a look at on the task force that I was a part of, the long-term pandemic task force. So I'd want to make sure that we're utilizing that learning and understanding moving forward. So with growth and expansion, that means finding new areas to have Delta SIGs across the country and across the globe. And I would want to make sure that we focus on growing those opportunities and the brotherhood within this goal. And lastly, to tie it all together, communication. I think that this is extremely important for us to always find ways to improve. We're never going to be perfect, but we're always going to be able to get better. And I believe that the most important thing that we can do is meet people where they're at and encourage people to look at our current educational platforms, leverage technology, and then find ways to communicate with brothers in real time. So I'd want to focus on three things here. Meet you where you're at, doing things like this, doing Instagram fireside chats with Cory, and finding ways to be able to turn around and be able to be available for all of you as Grand President, and making sure that our other leaders at the board level that I would lead would be doing the same thing. I think it's important to continuously ask for feedback and be able to have an open mind in what we are doing, and then being able to utilize technology while we communicate. And with the pandemic, we've all been able to do things like this that give us a natural opportunity to communicate in ways that we never would have before. One of the questions that I always get is, why would I want to be Grand President? And I want to be Grand President because I feel like I'm the right person at the right time. What that means is, over the last 15 years, I've gone from a freshman Delta SIG that the most professional thing that I had to wear were Doc Martens and cargo pants and a pink sweater to my first Delta SIG event, to now being able to run for Grand President. This organization has done so much for me, and I believe that I have a lot to give back still. And over the years, from my professional background, working on strategic plans, finance, leading different teams, understanding where we're at as an organization right now, and being able to have navigated the change that we have gone through over the last couple of years, and have a vision for us to not only survive but thrive out of the pandemic. I think we're at a really critical point, and I believe that my background is the best to lead our organization moving forward. So that is me talking. What questions, ideas do you have? Is there anything you want me to dive a little bit deeper on as we move forward? And as you think of those things, and Vito pulls up all the great questions that you have already prepared, before he does that, finding ways to connect beyond today, you can see some of the platforms that I'm on. I will copy and paste that into the chat too, so you can see the weird, quirky things that I'll continue to do on TikTok, and I've got a Grand President playlist on Spotify, and then all those other backgrounds as well.
Oh, that was great, Cory. And I can say this, that Grand President's playlist on Spotify is absolutely awesome. I love it, man.
Nice, thanks.
So you ready to, being a descendant of Jody Show and Amy Briggs, you should be ready for this, but you ready for the hot seat, eh?
Yeah,
Got some
let's
ice
go.
over there?
Yep, I'll take a drink of sparkling water to get ready.
Well, since you're in the FRAC Tavern, we might as well ask you the most FRAC related question that was submitted was, well, we know FRAC knows it's coming out of the pandemic, and we don't know what our future looks like, but FRAC has done a lot of great things in the past, however long the pandemic has gone on for. What are your plans to keep, everything was centered around alumni engagement nationwide and globally. What are your plans to do that as Grand President, as you go into your first term, and as we go into whatever new normal we're in?
Yeah, FRAC has done so many amazing things, right? Like the amount of ways to find engagement that have been outside of normal channels has been inspiring to watch and to see. And it's one of the most inclusive groups that I think we have across the country. I mean, you all have done a great job at finding people that have been lost and bringing them back into the fold, and finding ways for people to, spread their wings and create different Facebook groups and create different events beyond what we're doing from the current national level. So I think that that's inspiring to see. I think that there's ways to continue to find sense of belonging for people beyond the pandemic. So I think one of the things that we can do is to not lose sight of the great things that we've been able to do during the pandemic to connect people in a virtual environment. So being able to complement what we're doing in person with these types of Zoom calls, I think is extremely important. I think finding ways to connect people across boundaries is extremely important. I had talked about leadership development, building the bench, and finding places for people to fit in. And I think the pandemic has taught us that we don't have to be in the same geography to make an impact. So finding ways for people to connect across boundaries, and if there isn't an opportunity for somebody locally, but they have a passion, I think that we're able to connect and bring people into the fold to engage them as leaders, as alumni, and as collegiate members. So specifically, what I would do is taking a look at those programmings that we have for our collegiate members, making sure that those are exciting enough to want people want to stay engaged as alumni. And once we get them towards their end of their collegiate career, finding ways to connect them to their passions and have those conversations and say, what is your passion? Like, why do you want to stay involved as an alumni? And finding ways for them to fulfill that passion. Because not everybody's going to run for grand president, and not everybody's going to want to be an RVP or a DD or those types of things. And that's good. That's okay. And not everybody's going to want to continue their career right after graduation. Some people are going to want to take some time off. Some people are going to move and have other priorities. Some people are going to come back at different life cycles. So I think it's important to not forget the value that people can bring to this fraternity at any given point in time. So I think just keeping an open mind and finding ways to connect folks. And I think when I talked about the governance structure, I think that, FRAC has made us think about different ways that we can be structured in the future. So continuing those conversations about what that governance structure looks like is going to be important.
Heard. All right. And why do you feel this is the right time potentially for you to run for GP? With it being such a big and important decision, why do you think it's the right time for you, and why do you think it's the right time for the fraternity to have you as the GP?
Yeah, I think a lot of things with leadership is being called into a role and not feeling like you belong in a position and striving for that. Every step of my Delta Sig career and my path as a professional has been people reaching out and saying, hey, I think that you would be good in this role. You should pursue this. And then making sure that it's the right fit for me personally and for my family. So, part of the decision on running for grand president was seated in my head many years ago. And then as the time approached, I think, we've gone through a tremendous amount of changes in our organization. I've been a part of a lot of those changes from the decisions that I've made and the conversations that I've had. So I feel that I have an obligation to see those decisions through and learn from them and be better as a person and as a leader. And I don't know if you can hear Finn crying in the next room, but wanting to make sure that it's the right decision for my family moving forward. So, Anna, my wife, has been extremely supportive of me in this decision because she knows how important that this is for me to give back in this way. So having her full support has been extremely important. And I don't know what the future brings for me, right? Like I don't know what the next step would be beyond this. I'm 100% committed to being grand president, and I think that this is the right time. And I'm the only person that's from the board of directors currently that's running, so hopefully that gives an indication of people's trust and understanding of me as a person and as a leader, and even beyond the most recent set of board of directors too over the previous bienniums. I hope that's an indication that people believe that I'm up for the challenge and up for the role. And I knew that with Bill's pending retirement and the move that's happening right now is the change that we have on staff, and having that staff experience and understanding what makes people tick and what works well and what doesn't work well from an organization standpoint puts me as a really good resource for us to make the right decision and bring the right people together to help us in that decision-making process as we hire and onboard a new executive director.
All right. Some of our I think this probably is across the country, but some of our brothers in Texas, Florida, the Sierra Nevada region, other regions across the country do group initiations or regional initiations. What will your approach be to that? Do you encourage them? Do you discourage them? What's your take on multiple chapter initiations, for lack of better words?
Yeah, I think if they're executed really well, they can be extremely beneficial. So I think the key thing with regional initiations is to start the planning process far in advance as possible, and finding a way for people to be in a comfortable environment during that initiation. So some places it's going to work, some places it's not going to work. It's just going to have to be up to that local leadership team to have that conversation of what works best for them. And we do have some legislation at the next grand chapter regarding ritual and options relating to that with all of our rituals, but specifically with initiation. So there could be some options moving forward from there.
Copy. And what are your plans? A lot of the current candidates are talking about transparency, and you being on the current board, I know you've probably caught the heat of this. What are your plans to communicate to the fraternity as a whole and really have transparency going forward as you're the grand president for a minimum of 2 years? And if you get that, you'll be the PGP for at least 2 years.
Yeah, I think communication and transparency have been a couple of the buzzwords throughout the campaign. I think it's extremely important to share the why in our decisions. That's where that inform comes from a campaign standpoint, what I want to do as grand president. So I think the best indicator of future action is past action. And so I'd like to call out a couple of different things that I've done throughout my leadership time within Delta Sig over the last couple of years that I want to be able to continue. One is having that fun and informal way to connect with people and share updates from a national level with those fireside chats with Cory. I think that would be a cool thing to continue, since people seem to engage in those and have some fun with them. I don't know if all of you remember or not, but when we suspended the CMP program for 2019, 2020 with the uncertainty of the pandemic and making sure that we were giving everybody the right path forward and focusing on the right things at the right time. And we didn't know what the future brought. So that was the best decision for us at that time. I don't know if you all remember, there was a petition that was out there that made the suggestion about reversing that decision. And there was some uncertainty about how we were going to deal with that. And the way that I went about it was directly reaching out to the individuals from the province that signed that petition to have a conversation. So what we did is, I think there were 8 people that signed that petition from the North Central from the time that we looked at it initially, and had a conversation with the RVPs and said, hey, this is their way of contacting us. We should have a conversation with them and see where their mindset is, because the people that were on that list, I think there's people that are future us's, right, that want to remain engaged beyond their collegiate careers. And I don't want this to be something that discourages them. So we set up time where it was a Zoom call with myself, the RVP, and the person that signed the petition from the province. And essentially we asked, what was the reason for signing the petition, and why was that the best course of action for you to gain the attention on wanting to make a change. And the prevailing themes that came out of that were, number one, they felt that was their way to support their fellow brothers, to gain the attention of their local leadership. And they said, Cory, and whoever the RVP was, if we would have had an idea on something different or something better, we know that we could come to you and have that conversation and share that idea. So that made me extremely happy and extremely sad all at the same time. But I think just being able to be vulnerable in these times is extremely important as a leader, because no one has had any right answers or wrong answers, or no one has known what the future is going to bring. So we're all doing our best. And I think it's okay to be empathetic and vulnerable in that way as a leader, and not be afraid of those conversations. Um, and I think tying those two things together is just continuing to share, you know, my face and my ability to connect with people and across different mediums, so people know that they can come to me in a variety of different ways that is comfortable for them. And even if we disagree, that we can still have a conversation, and we can both be better moving forward from that. And I think the other key thing that I've learned throughout the time as a leader, specifically on the board of directors over the last couple of years, has been that it's okay to have a disagreement. It's okay to not end up at the same decision, but it's important to still be able to have cordial conversation with people. And even if you're not able to share the same outcome desired, that you're still able to have a mutual respect and trust for one another, so you're able to be better moving forward.
Copy. How do you feel about some of the feedback and petitions that you've gotten from collegiates and alumni, but mainly collegiates, about the numerous concerns about the new pledge program itself? The pledge program itself, not necessarily how it was rolled out or anything like that, but the actual pledge program. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that when we made the decision on the pledge program in the form that it is now, we knew that we had done some good research on collecting feedback from collegiates at lead programs and going through a process that got us to a good decision. And I think that we all knew that the program that we initially implemented was going to need some tweaks and changes along the way. And we've put ourselves out there and asked those questions. So we've done a few different things. There was the random 250 pledges that we reached out to, that central office had a conversation on, to solicit feedback. The RVPs and the DDs within the province have gone out and asked questions about, what's working, what hasn't, what's not working within the program, and finding ways to give them an avenue for change for that. And I think the best thing that we can do moving forward with the pledge program is continuing to share the why and the purpose behind what we're wanting to do, whether that's the shorter program, or the positions or the lack thereof, and what are some ways that we can do that. And I think that's something that we can need to continue to do over the next couple of years, is share the why and what we're looking for out of that program. And then for folks to know across the country that we're receiving some pressure from various schools that were wanting to eliminate pledge programs overall. And we wanted to make some change that we were able to be proactive on, and develop a program that we were confident was going to develop a great Delta SIGs on our own terms right now, versus being thrust into a decision later on where we had less control over what we were doing. But I think just continuously asking for the feedback, and sharing the why behind something, so people understand what they're hoping to accomplish. And I think a lot of the conversations I've had about folks saying, voicing an objection to the pledge program so far, has been being able to explain, okay, I understanding, I hear what you are saying, and either A, we can look to make some changes or tweaks beyond that, or B, that's not something that we're looking to change, and here's why, and here's also some ways that you can find the end result that you're looking for, and the intent in what you're looking for, and the activities that no longer are within the pledge program. So just sharing the why, and sharing some other opportunities and options for people to take action on has been extremely important. Vito, if you're talking, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Well, there's multiple petitions out there to change the pledge program back to how it was in 2019, or at minimum, make some major adjustments to it. and you kind of addressed it a little bit, but really doubled down. How do you feel about if that petition gets a lot of steam and it comes to, well, you'll be GP, the GP's door, and you're going to have to act?
Yeah, I think, one of the things with the program, in terms of making the changes, I want to make sure that we're providing the education on how to properly make those changes and go through that right process. So understanding where they're coming from and what they need, and then also saying, okay, if this is something that you feel strongly about and want to make that change, let's find a way to go through the proper channels to make those changes. So we get the right documentation. They understand the process, so they aren't surprised as they go through that process, making sure that they're able to provide the feedback, to solicit the feedback that they need in order to gain the support that would be needed to pass a recommendation. And this is something that I've done throughout my leadership time is, even if I don't agree with what you're wanting to do, I'm still going to be a resource for you on how you can find a way to support that process. So, if there is, a desire to make changes to the pledge program, and I'm grant president, I'm going to listen to those ideas and find ways for us to be collaborative and come to a reasonable final answer on it. So I think that's the best thing that we can do.
All right. And just to clarify, there's no changes to the pledge program about to be made legislation wise at this upcoming GCC, right?
No, and the
Right,
pledge, and the pledge program itself too is within policy. So that's something that wouldn't need to wait for a grand chapter decision to be made. That's something that can be made by a vote of the board of directors. So that can be submitted by any brother at any time, or any group of brothers at any time to be reviewed.
Okay. Just wanted the clarification there. And what's one thing you wish you knew earlier in your volunteer leadership experience that you know now?
That to be careful with my words, if that makes sense. So being thoughtful and understanding that, even though I might be just sharing my personal opinion or my personal thought or an idea, when you're sitting on the board of directors and you have a vote and a voice, that when you're sharing those thoughts and opinions, you have to be very clear in your intent and what you are not intending. So I think there's some points where I shared a thought or idea and some people took that as, okay, Cory wants to do this, where in reality, I just wanted to start a conversation. So I think what I would tell my past self and what I would learn from in the future is saying, my intent here is to XYZ. My intent here is not to XYZ. So that way, when we're having those conversations, the expectations are clearly set.
All right. I think I agree with that one right there, 100%. What are your thoughts or plans regarding improving our existing technology and implementing new technology into the fraternity? Because I think we all know that we had, was it Patriot before, and now we have the hub, and there's so many different technology issues we've come across. What are your plans to try to improve that?
Yeah, I think utilizing technology is an important way for us to connect and move forward and be better. I think there's a few decision-making points when looking at technology. Is one, finding what we want to accomplish by using any technology that we're having. Number two, going out and searching legitimate opportunities where people and companies are able to support that desire. Number three, looking at what that cost is going to be, both short-term and long-term. And then number four, continuously looking at opportunities and options for the future. So not locking us into too long of agreements where we're able to be nimble and adaptable for moving forward. And this is something that we've been able to take a look at over the last couple of years. And we've had different options presented to us on some technologies that have been proposed to cost a lot of money, and we've chosen to pass on some of those opportunities because it didn't make sense to spend money on something that wasn't going to improve us that was going to have to be a cost passed down to our members. So I'm extremely cognizant of that. And I think the other thing that we have to consider from a Delta Sig standpoint is understanding from our past and what has not worked. And sometimes that's been developing things within our own desires and then trying to force fit it to the rest of our members. And I think it's important for us to look at the current technologies out there and utilize those instead of trying to recreate the wheel. But I mean, the thing with technology is finding a way for it to be secure and safe, and being able to connect people across different platforms, and that's extremely important to make us better. So, but I think the honest thing that we have to do is, what do we want to get out of the technology? How much is that going to cost? And is that worth it for us? And if it is, then we move forward. If it's not, what are some of the other alternatives that we can put in place that could accomplish part of what we want to do from our vision as a whole?
Besides our GCC, our lead events, those other national events put on by the CEO and national fraternity, what are your ideas or plans to increase interactions between brothers and chapter officers, and really the brotherhood as a whole outside of those national events that, one, are going to cost money, two, will require travel? One thing FRAC has done is definitely broke down the walls of geography. Is no longer an excuse for brotherhood walls to be up. So what are your plans to, on the collegiate and alumni level, keep those walls down as much as possible without having to say, get some money and go on a plane to said city?
Yeah, I think it's a great way to continue using Zoom to connect people and find ways to connect folks over, like the DSP speakers group. That's been great to connect folks and continuing those types of things. One thing that we've done from a budget standpoint for this next biennium is, even though fall leads are not going to be in person, we've kept that same leadership budget item the same, so we can do more local events, because people in California and people in Texas and people in Boston, there's going to be different restrictions and requirements and ways for people to be able to interact. So I think it's going to be very important to empower the local leadership to connect with folks and develop those relationships, because there's going to be people that have never met us in person, have never given the grip, and we want to make sure that we're getting out there and ensuring that we're developing those relationships moving forward, because there's nothing that takes the place of an in-person event. I think the other thing that we can do is finding ways, I talked about, leadership development and building the bench. And one of the ways that we do that is finding ways for people to stay involved and connected in different ways beyond being an elected leader. So finding those people that are able to be chapter champions, if they have subject matter expertise within a certain area, they can connect with chapters across the country, individuals, small groups, whatever it may be. But finding the ways to empower other people to make connections. I think that's something that starts at the top with me as Grand President, is finding ways to connect with people. And there's 13,000 members in the collegiate ranks at any given time. That's a lot of people to connect with and have a meaningful relationship. So we've got to be able to find those alumni that are able to make those connections and have meaningful relationships with people. And give them the right tools and resources and training to be successful for our group. So I think finding ways in the fall to interact in a personal way, continuing to utilize the technology that's out there, whether it's something that we pay for, like the Zoom accounts that we've paid for the leadership within Delta Sig to continue that, or whatever it may be. But I think just developing those relationships and reconnecting with people in ways that we haven't been able to before, starting right now and then in the fall and beyond, is going to be extremely important.
Okay, you kind of answered this, but some regions, some other Greek letter organizations, they may not have something like a fall lead, but they may have something which will be our equivalent of a regional conference. So the North Central region may have their own. Since we are going into a lead season that will be virtual in the fall, if done safely, would you condone Gulf Western or North or was it New England or South Pac having a mini lead or a small regional conference if they can do so safely within COVID guidelines, national guidelines, or whatever laws they have to abide by.
Yeah, I think if people locally want to do something like that, I would support that 100%. I think that having that plan in place and understanding what needs to be done to implement that, and relying on some of that local leadership and giving them the support and resources that they need, whether that's financially or if there's programming that's already put together from staff standpoint that would already be having a program and outline in place to utilize that, to complement what they want to do locally. And if they want to do something locally that is important and a higher priority for them, in terms of what they want to do for their educational piece, then I think that would be great. And as long as people feel safe to do that, I would say go for it.
Great. So you talked about building the bench, and I think as long as I've known you since we went to that baseball game, people have said that DDs are the lifeblood of the fraternity, the backbone of the fraternity. However, in the past few years, some DDs or even volunteer leaders, RVPs, have felt the DDs are not held at the highest regard for all the work they put in. They're not eligible for Golden Council, and all they really do is get a discount sometimes at GCC. If you're elected Grand President, what ways are you willing to not only help our DDs get training, which is being done, but also make them feel more appreciated besides that Grand Congress reception and that Grand Congress discount, since if they are said to be the lifeblood of the fraternity or backbone of the fraternity?
Yeah. I think DDs and chapter advisors and those people that are on the ground each and every day, connecting with folks locally and understanding the pulse of what's going on at their very local level. I think that's probably the most rewarding job that we have, and probably one of the toughest, right? Because they're the ones getting all the questions right away before gets to somebody else that needs to be brought into the conversation. So I think developing the culture of appreciation is really important. So we talk a lot about holding people accountable, and if something doesn't go right, then we find a way to improve that and get better. And I think that we also have to swing the pendulum back the other way, and find ways to acknowledge what people are doing really well, and share that with them individually. Some people like public praise and a gift, and some people want it just in a quick side conversation, so they know that you appreciate them in that way. So I think it's finding ways to develop the culture within the organization to focus as much on what we're doing well and that appreciation about the good things, as it is about finding the need to improve in that disciplinary way and hold people accountable, because we got to be able to build that stockpile of goodwill with all of our folks as we move forward. So I think developing that culture is going to be really important. That starts with me, right? And that's me seeing something on an Instagram story that looks really great, and sending a message or a lit emoji about what they've got going on, just so they know that I see them and appreciate that. So but building that culture is going to be the most important thing. And if there's if there's desire for other ways of recognition in a more formal way beyond like the DD of the year that we do, again, open to that conversation and seeing what we might want to do with it.
I think you just answered this question too, but I guess might as well just throw it at you directly. If there was a petition, if there was a recommendation put forth to the new board, would you consider hearing out a petition to allow DDs who have been DDs for maybe, I don't know, 10 to 15 years or have multiple different roles in the fraternity to apply to be part of the Golden Council? Not would you accept the proposal, but would you at least hear it out, seeing that everything that you basically just said? I think that made that question come up.
Yeah, I think anything that people want to bring forth in a recommendation, or even if it doesn't get to a formal recommendation, but just finding a way to have that initial conversation about, hey, I have this idea, or I see this gap, or I think that we can improve by doing X, Y, Z. I'm always going to be willing to listen to that and have a conversation. And whether that's me having that conversation directly with somebody, or whether that's me saying, hey, I'm not the best person right now to talk to about this, but here are 2 or 3 people that you can talk to that's going to give you a good perspective on where we're at, where we were, and where we want to go, and then working through that process. But yeah, I think if there's an idea that somebody has, it's worth having that conversation. And like I had said before, even if it's something that I agree with or don't agree with, I'm going to find a way for you to be heard, and I'm going to listen and provide the resources to make those changes in that proper way. And then even if the end result is different for different parties, that's okay. Then we find ways to be better in different ways, and we've had that conversation, and we've gained a perspective that we might not have had if we didn't consider that recommendation from the beginning. And
Okay.
specifically to like if there's a recommendation on ways to recognize people with a award or title, I think that's worth the conversation for sure.
All right, FRAC, you heard that. You guys gonna get that white paper going. You just heard Cory say get on it.
White paper, I love it. Nice. Yeah.
So here's one. We always are going to have well, I should probably ask you this other question first. You spoke about expansion during your presentation, and we know that there's the quota of 250. What is your plan for retention and helping the collegiate and alumni chapters that may be struggling, maybe need just a little extra love and care, even if they're not in trouble? While expansion is important, and we all know we have bills to pay, what are we going to do about the ones we already have? Given the notion of it's always great to get new ones, but if you don't take care of the ones you have, the balance is still going to be unbalanced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the thing with growth and expansion is we need to be doing right by our current members, and giving them the right resources to be successful. And some of the people on this call have seen that end up with a lot of effort on putting forth to find ways for our current brothers to be successful and them to grow and expand. And sometimes that doesn't work out, and that sucks, and it doesn't feel good. But I think there's other ways for us to build what we have in terms of membership and opportunities within our current goal. My background as a salesperson and operations person, it's a lot easier to retain a current customer than to gain a new one. So I think that's something that we have to keep in perspective as well, in terms of how we make the transition from like that colony standpoint to chapter standpoint, and making sure that they're successful. One of the things that I'm most proud of from my time as an ELC is we were able to install a chapter within 9 months, and that process usually takes 1.5 years or 2 years. And there's a lot of odds against us to be able to do that. But I think just laying out a roadmap of expectations and timeline and metrics, and having each person understand why those things are important to accomplish is really critical on us moving forward with that expansion piece of it. So I think there needs to be a balance. I think there can be a balance. I think we can grow as an organization, both in terms of expanding our current footprint, but also growing the footprint that we currently have. And I think that we've got 13,000 collegiate brothers, but we have we've been around since 1907, so we've got a lot of alumni out there that we can utilize to help us move forward. And that's something that I'm really proud of from the North Central standpoint. Is we've been able to have a district director appointed for every single one of our chapters, and that's really cool. And I think that there's more desire for us to do things beyond that, and finding the right passions that people have and engage them in that way.
So with that expansion piece, you're going to be required, if you're going to keep expanding, to go to colleges that are in rural areas, that are in small towns, and they're not near the big cities. currently under our current alumni chapter structure, most of our alumni chapters are mostly in big cities, metroplexes. You're going to have DDs that live in the middle of nowhere, not near an alumni chapter. At the same token, you're going to have major cities such as Salt Lake City that have numerous brothers there, but we do not have collegiate chapters there. What are your plans to engage those brothers who may be a DD, but live in Erie, Pennsylvania, where MUPI is, where there's no alumni chapter in sight, or in Salt Lake City, where we don't have any collegiate chapters. We might not have alumni chapters because they probably do live 50 miles apart. How are you going to keep those brothers in the fold besides their leadership foundation funds and obviously volunteering their time? Or brothers as a whole, how are you going to engage them without asking of them, for lack of better words?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things to keep in perspective on that, and what we'd want to do is we as Delta Sig say that we're going to perpetuate the growth of the fraternity throughout our lifetime and remain actively supportive. And I think it's about asking the question about, there's not an opportunity that you see right now in your current area. What are you hoping to see? And if there's an opportunity for us to do something new, then we should look to pursue that. If it's something that it's an opportunity that we currently offer that person or that group of people might not even know that we offer, it's about educating them about how to go about that and make that into a reality. In terms of, Pennsylvania, I don't know if they don't have a alumni chapter at all overall, so it's like, is that because the people there don't want to participate in the alumni chapter activities? And if that's okay, if that's the case, then we know that, and we find other ways for them to connect in the way that they need to. And if it's something where, we've got a lot of people going out to Salt Lake City, and we have a big group of alumni out there, and we want to target a couple different campuses in that area and expand there and start a colony, sharing that as an opportunity and finding the right people in the right seats at the right time is going to be important. That's going to be a continued evolution of getting feedback from folks about how they want to be involved, and that's, we have to be able to be adaptable and nimble in what they want to do to keep them engaged, but we also have to make sure that we have the right foundation in place. So if we do start a chapter someplace, whether it's collegiate or alumni, that we have that foundation to have it last more than 6 months or a year or 5 years. We want to make sure that we're setting the people up for success in each of those areas. So specifically, I think it's just having that conversation with folks and asking them, what are you passionate about? And start there, and then connect them with the right people and give them the right resources.
All right. Last 3 questions. Overall, we all know that we're a collegiate organization that's been made very clear in the past 5 years, but majority of your population is alumni. We know there's volunteer roles like DD, working with the foundation, things of that nature. What, for the over probably 10,000 Delta SIGs out there, there's never going to be enough DD roles, committee roles, task force roles, and et cetera, for everyone to fill them. And those the collegiates bring in the money, the alumni are the lifeblood of the fraternity. What are your plans to engage them without it having to be a volunteer or money donation experience? How are you going to keep them? What are your plans as GP to help them stay connected to the brotherhood, especially when life gets in the way, fraternity politics get in the way, and every other thing gets in the way? Because obviously what we've done in the past, if our alumni ratio is less than 5%, obviously what we're doing isn't working that well.
Yeah, I think some of the things that have been brought up in these questions tonight are part of what our next strategic priorities are for over the course of the next 5 years that we have approved. So making sure that we have the right retention of alumni and chapters in terms of percentage wise, and having those key metrics behind what we're doing from a strategic priority standpoint. So as we look at those metrics and look at that data, that we're able to trigger questions within our mind about what's working, what's not working, and why, and how do we make improvements behind it. And that relates to growth and expansion. It relates to alumni retention and engagement. And in terms of finding ways for people to be involved that aren't in a, in a formal leadership role, are extremely important, because, I understand that not everybody's going to want to be a DD, or it's not going to be, maybe there's not even a role available right now in that area for that person, but that doesn't mean that there's, just because they don't fit into one bucket, doesn't mean that we just stop trying and stop looking. Like, we find ways for them to help be involved. And we've been starting to work on some of these chapter champion pieces. A lot of that's a foundation piece of it, but I think that there's growth beyond that, and we've been looking at some subject matter expert opportunities for folks. So if you're able to share your experiences in your professional career in a way that we're able to connect you with a collegiate member and help them along their journey, I think that that's something that we should look into making permanent. And as we continue to find ways to engage people, from an alumni standpoint, I think it's, kind of back to that question about, making sure that DDs feel appreciated for all the work that they've done, is, continuously create that culture and environment where it's like, just because you don't have a title does not mean that you aren't a leader. And I think that that's something that we kind of forget about and don't appreciate sometimes. And that's natural human behavior, but I think it's something we need to be aware of and be better about. So, yeah, I think just about putting yourself out there and being vulnerable and understanding that, people are at different points in their life, and sometimes that changes drastically on a hat. I mean, we're a volunteer organization. We should have some fun with it too. So, people want to remain involved because it's fun. So, we want to make sure that we're creating a fun environment as well for people to be a part of.
Yeah, it's all fun when you have a great RVP, except for when they you haven't been my previous PVP. I didn't know how much fun I was going to have this past semester. Now did I? Two quick rapid fire questions for you is say you came, how do you feel about, well, you're on this board, but this board currently is setting the strategic priorities for the upcoming board. Put yourself in someone else's shoes. How do you feel about the previous board setting the strategic priorities for a new board?
Yeah, I think when we looked at the previous set of strategic priorities and looked to set the future set of strategic priorities from this current board, we all understood that we were setting priorities for the entire organization and not just the board of directors. And I think we did a really good job at understanding that we aren't creating our strategic priorities because we are on the board right now. These are not our or my strategic priorities. These are something that we feel is going to put us in the right direction moving forward for the next 5 years, but that's going to put us in an opportunity to be better over the next 100 years. So when we created the strategic priorities, we looked at what worked well in the past, what didn't work well, and why, and we made those adjustments. And I think we did a really good job at creating strategic priorities that we were able to take action on currently, but also still give the ability for the next board to make each of those metrics and those resources given unique to that next board, while still having that holistic mindset approach of we're all Delta SIGs and we're doing it for the betterment of the organization. So I think we've done a really good job at that. We put different pillars in each of the four sections of the priorities. We included that DEI, governance, and leadership foundation in each of those four. And then we updated some of the metrics for those things. And as you dive deeper into each of those strategic priorities, that's where we're able to look at engaging different people and setting the right metrics and data points for each of those subsets of priorities. So I think there's a lot of different tentacles to those priorities, and I think we've done a good job at setting a really good strategic path for us, no matter who's in those seats. And I really believe that as a board of directors, we're there to set strategy and set direction for the organization as a whole, and we should be able to take ourselves personally out of those spots and other people out of those spots and look at the best way for us to set the direction for the organization as a whole, regardless of who's in what seat.
Are those available online for all members to see, or are those going to be available online for all
Yeah.
members to see?
Yeah, I'm sure they are. I can probably look it up quick here too.
I'm sure somebody as many FRAC brothers are well versed in the website. I'm sure somebody's probably Googling it right now. The minute
Yeah.
you said that.
Yeah, I'm sure if you look at the news section of deltasig.dsp.org, that there's announcement and what those strategic priorities are. And then we'll continue to share out, where we're at with those metrics and moving forward on some of those things. And then as we, close out this set of strategic priorities, we'll share, what where we're at at each of those metrics too.
All right, Cody, go find them and report back on what you find, bro. And the second rapid fire question that leads into probably the most hot seat question you're gonna get tonight is HBCUs. Are you and also campuses that are not just historically Black, but maybe have a large Latino population? Are you open to opportunities at those type of universities?
100%. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of talented people out there, and we can't be afraid to go to different places that we haven't gone to before. To be a better organization and provide different opportunities for different folks. So I don't, we're all one human race. We're all one people. We're all in this together, and I think that the broader our scope is on reaching out to different campuses, the better.
Okay. And at our recent hot seat, the real hot seat question to piggyback off of that is at FRAC's our final event, there was a DEI. There were a lot of hard questions, and one of them came about from a collegiate who said they felt their chapter was being unfairly targeted based on race, though they had good CMP and no risk management violations. And the question came to the panel of, should they just give up their charter since they're not wanted? Or they feel unwanted based on emails from central office and maybe local leadership that they said CO, but maybe local leadership involved in that too. If you take the DEI aspect out of that and you have a chapter that feels unwanted or not good enough, whether it's because of race, whether it's because their RPP is too hard on them or whatever, and they're ready to give up their charter, what's your message to those chapters? Mind you, they're trying to give up their charter. So it's not one of those you can really be more hard on them because they're just going to push back more. How would you handle that situation?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the listening aspect and asking the right questions, and, having that real conversation about, where are we at? What are the expectations that that everybody has, and what we want our end goal to be, and then finding ways for us to, because I think you never want anybody to feel unwanted or feel like they're unfairly targeted. So I think just having those conversations about, hey, we're approaching you in this way, or we're bringing these sets of expectations to you, and here's why we're doing that, and here's how it impacts you and the organization as a whole, and then have that back and forth, and
Yeah, Cory, I think you're frozen a bit here, or is that just me, guys?
No, he broke up with half of what he was saying.
Yeah, Cory, we didn't hear the last part of what you said. You froze up on us. If you can hear us.
Bandwidth.
all right, am I back?
Are you back? Yes, you're back.
You're back.
Okay.
You're back.
Oh my.
All right.
Gosh.
Last thing I think we heard was you saying having the back and forth, and then you were getting into more of it.
Yeah, it's about being able to be vulnerable and making sure that people have a good set of expectations, and holding each other accountable. And my internet is still unstable. I don't know what's happening. So if I drop again, I apologize, but I think it's all about having that conversation and making sure that it's a mutually beneficial endeavor to be a part of. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. And we have to have those honest conversations. But no, it hurts when people say that they don't feel welcome or feel feel a sense of belonging. But in terms of that conversation, you have to ask the right questions, and both parties have to feel comfortable sharing their thoughts and expectations, and just asking the right questions and listening, and depending on the context of all of it too, that might change the direction of how that conversation goes or how that's set up.
Yeah, that's I didn't have to ask the question at the panel, but definitely hearing and seeing the questions come through was that one took me aback there.
Yeah, and not specifically
was-
necessarily to that, but just everything in general. I think with some of these questions and some of the feedback is.
Oh, I think we lost you again, Cory.
Dang it.
Just spit it out real quick, because I think we can hear you.
Okay. I was going to say, just in general, like, I have one set of experiences and one perspective. And I think the one thing that I'd want to get out of being resident is forcing people to look at things from a different perspective and gain a better understanding of the context of the situation, so that we're putting forth the best result that we possibly can, without having a narrow-minded focus. Let's think a broader perspective and look into gaining all of the thoughts and ideas that other people have, overall.
Yeah, because I'm sure if we're still being expansion junkies, we won't get closer to that 250 if 4 chapters give up their charters for various reasons, right?
Yeah, and so when we were looking at the next set of strategic priorities too, and I know we're a little bit over time here too, so I like sharing some context and the why and behind what we're doing too. So as we looked at that set of strategic priorities, we knew that there was going to be points in time where we were not going to be able to retain chapters for whatever reason. I mean, if you are hazing and putting people in an unsafe environment, like, you don't deserve to have a charter if that continues to happen. So recognizing that we're going to have to make tough decisions, and sometimes the harder decisions about closing a chapter because they were doing the wrong thing that was inappropriate, that's actually ends up being an easy decision. But we didn't want to force the next board of directors into that. Okay, now we have to meet this X quota about chapter numbers. We wanted it to be focused more on the overall growth of where we're at. So I think that was one of the key changes that we made from the last strategic priorities to the next one, is having that understanding that there's going to be decisions that are going to be made, that have to be made for the betterment of the organization. And we have to take that into account as we set those metrics and goals.
All right. We'll end it on a hopefully a lighter note, and then on a fun note. Lighter note is we know the fraternity is a business, but it's also a brotherhood, and we obviously know all the board of directors is going to make sure the business part of it is taken care of, along with the CO staff and volunteer leaders. What's your plans to keep the brotherhood part of it alive and really look out for the collegiate and alumni brothers, and making sure that brotherhood feel is still there and we don't feel so much like a honor society or just a club, aka it says LOL if he goes agreeing that we should be an honor society, I'm not voting for him. I'm with, but Cory, as much as I love you, Cory, I'm with the person that said that.
Yeah. No, I some of the things that set us apart as a fraternity is what's in our ritual and the mission and values and sense of belonging to something greater than yourself. And I think it's important to continue to educate people on our ritual and the most important things that have remained at the center of our existence. So I think that's extremely important. There's obviously been some changes within ritual over the last couple of years, but I think the things that have stuck with us over the last 100+ years as an organization within the ritual, it has remained unchanged. So I think it's about educating folks about what the meaning is behind our ritual and taking that to heart. And in terms of the brotherhood too, like it's a fraternity. Like we should be having fun. We should be enjoying each other's company. We should be, doing things that make us happy and smile. It doesn't always have to be just, we got to get this done. We got to get this done. Of course we're going to get stuff done. We're going to do the right thing, and we're going to take our jobs seriously. But like, I hope to have that aura about me that we're going to work hard, and we're going to have some fun doing it too. And I want to make sure that people know that that's okay. It's okay to have fun. It's a fraternity, and we're brothers, and we do this from a volunteer standpoint. So, and some of you too have been on at events with me too. It's not you see me like this and campaigning for Grand President and at podiums and everything, but you also see me out and about and in rooms and down at the bar having a beer or two with folks and having those conversations. And it's
in a Twins jersey.
In a Twins jersey, yeah. And we're going to baseball games and reaching out to people and saying, hey, do you want to do this and join in with folks? And I think it's okay to let people know that we're gonna get our work done and we're gonna accomplish great things. We're gonna be really successful, but we're gonna celebrate each other throughout that process.
All right, Cory. Well, thanks for your time today. Of course, for the 4 groups that FRAC created during this pandemic that our FRAC ran and FRAC owned are DSP speakers, DSP serves, the Storied Pass, and of course the Foodie Club. And well, we got to end it on a funny note here. 2 rapid fire questions. 1,
okay.
Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Yeah, if you like it, go for it.
Smart question. See, smart. You learn to use your words carefully there. Very good answer. And then a very important question. 2-part question. 1, how do you take your steak if you order it the way you want it? What is the temperature?
Yeah, I go medium. I actually had a medium steak for took my dad out for his birthday on Monday. So we went to a steakhouse, but I like medium.
Okay. You know what a filet mignon steak cut is, right? You know what that is?
Mm-hmm.
Under any circumstance, should that steak on purpose be cooked well done?
Oh, no. But I've seen it happen. And so we actually, I know it's a rapid fire question, but went out with our CEO of Grupo Nutrisa and my boss and her boss's boss, and we were all together at dinner a couple weeks ago. And the person from Colombia got the steak well done, and it was a fillet. And I was like, oh my gosh! But that's how she wanted it. That's how she.
That's a different culture, though.
Yeah, I was like, okay, go for that. Enjoy that.
But a filet mignon with well done with American cheese is not okay, correct?
No.
All right, we don't have to kick them out, guys.
Is somebody doing that?
You didn't. Oh wait, we got to end this recording, but we'll tell you about that in a moment. Thank you.
Nice.
Officially, the recording is almost over. Thanks, Cory, for your time today. Brothers, we'll have this available along with Paul's before the end of the week. And I'll stop this recording right now.